Hello and welcome to this week's West Asia Post with me, Ghadi Francis, our weekly show where we bring you stories from the world's most volatile region. We started the year with the killing of the Iranian General Qassem Soleimani. And as the year comes to an end, our focus remains on another gruesome assassination. Iran's top nuclear scientist was killed in an attack just outside the capital of Tehran. Mohsen Fakhrizadeh was often named the father of Iran's nuclear program. Our next report tells you more.
A brazen daylight attack on a major road just outside Tehran. One of Iran's most prominent nuclear scientists, Mohsen Fakhrizadeh, was traveling in a car when he was attacked. He was seriously wounded when assailants targeted his car. They detonated an explosion, forcing his car to stop before shooting at Fakhrizadeh's car. Images from the scene showed a black sedan on the side of the road, its windshield pockmarked with bullet holes. Fakhrizadeh later died after medics failed to revive him. Born in 1958 in Qom, Fakhrizadeh first joined the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. Even as a scientist, he retained a senior rank in the Iranian Revolutionary Guards as a brigadier general. Fakhrizadeh was believed to have been involved in Iran's ballistic missile development. He is the only Iranian scientist named in the International Atomic Energy Agency's 2015 final assessment about Iran's nuclear program. Once described by Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu as the father of Iran's nuclear weapons program,
a key part of the plan was to form new organizations to continue the work. This is how Dr. Mohsen Fakhrizadeh, head of Project Ahmad, put it. Remember that name, Fakhrizadeh.
Fakhrizadeh's killing has plunged Iran into turmoil. A blame game has begun in West Asia, with Iran accusing Israel of killing the nuclear scientist. Rouhani accused Israel of acting as a mercenary for the US in carrying out the assassination. He further said, and I quote, "Once again, the wicked hands of the global arrogance with the usurper's Zionist regime as the mercenary were stained with the blood of a son of this nation." Unquote. Ironically, even a top US administration official said that Israel was behind the attack. The killing is the latest in a series of assassinations that the Islamic Republic has blamed on Israel. Between 2010 and 2012, 4 Iranian nuclear scientists have been assassinated in Tehran. Most of these have been in dramatic fashion, with motorcycle-borne assailants and car bombs. But the timing of this assassination is strategic. Comes less than 2 months before Joe Biden is set to take office as the 46th President of the United States. Biden has promised a return to diplomacy with Iran. The President-elect has said that the US will return to the 2015 deal if Iran resumes compliance. Meanwhile, anger in Iran has prompted the passing of a bill, one that requires the government to suspend nuclear inspections unless sanctions are lifted. But the government promptly said the move could not change Iran's nuclear policy. Iran's President Hassan Rouhani has now rejected the new bill, calling it harmful to diplomatic efforts aimed at restoring the 2015 nuclear deal. West Asia Bureau, WION. World is One.
This assassination has triggered a new conflict in West Asia. Tehran has vowed harsh revenge and is pointing fingers at Israel. But the killing of Iran's top nuclear scientist exposed a security gap for the country. However, the question remains, what will Iran do next?
Following the killing of Mohsen Fakhrizadeh, there has been considerable anger on the streets of Iran. People were seen taking to the streets. and even protesting outside Iran's parliament. Inside the parliament, the scene was no different. Iranian lawmakers chanted death to America and death to Israel. But the anger and frustration goes much deeper than that. With this latest killing, deep fault lines in the country's security infrastructure are now exposed for the world to see, suggesting that the Islamic Republic is vulnerable to further attacks. There are conflicting accounts on how Fakhrizadeh was assassinated, but a degree of infiltration is certain. Fakhrizadeh's killing followed two other big security lapses. The theft of Iran's nuclear archive and a fire at a nuclear facility this year. Many believe that Iran's enemies have found its Achilles heel. Iran's inability to prevent such operations could encourage future attempts. But there's a much more pressing issue at hand. Core supporters of the Islamic Republic have had enough. They want revenge and they want it against Israel. Tehran says that it will launch a crushing response to Fakhrizadeh's killing. The country has a few options before it. One would be to accelerate its nuclear program, something that the country's hardline parliament seems to be in favor of. Stepping up the program would be a way of showing defiance. A second option could be to mobilize its proxies across West Asia, using them to strike back at Israel. But an option that Iran's top leadership could be leaning towards is doing absolutely nothing for now. Retaliatory measures could make it hard for Joe Biden to change America's Iran policy. And no one knows that better than Iranian leaders. President Hassan Rouhani has said Iran will retaliate for the killing at the proper time, but will not fall into Israel's trap in the last days of Donald Trump's presidency.
All think tank centers and all the enemies of Islamic Iran know that the Iranian nation and officials are too brave and zealous to ignore this criminal act. The relevant authorities will respond to this crime in a timely and appropriate manner.
11 months back, Iran responded to Qassem Soleimani's killing with an airstrike on US troops in Iraq. This time around, it cannot afford such a strike. For now, the world is waiting for Iran's response. West Asia Bureau, WION World is One.
We will continue to bring you the latest updates from the heart of the conflict. We have a lot more for today. But first, as usual, let's take a look at what else is making headlines across West Asia.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu accused Defense Minister Benny Gantz of violating their coalition agreements. This comes after Gantz joined hands with lawmakers in giving a preliminary approval to a bill dissolving parliament. Gantz instead said that Netanyahu is focusing only on his political self-interest. 29 arms control and human rights groups have signed a letter opposing the sale of $23 billion worth of missiles, fighter jets and drones to the United Arab Emirates, asking the United States Congress to block the deal. After Bahrain and the United Arab Emirates formalized ties with Israel in September, Bahrain's trade minister has now said that the country will not distinguish between products made in Israel and those from settlements in occupied territory. His comments have drawn a strong rebuke from the Palestinians. French President Emmanuel Macron says a fund will be set up to ensure aid is channeled directly to the Lebanese people. Macron also warned that without a credible new government, there would be no international bailout to save the country.
Senior White House advisor Jared Kushner is on a West Asia mission. Kushner is visiting Saudi Arabia and Qatar in what looks like a last diplomatic push by the Trump administration. While many are expecting Kushner to focus on the 3-year-long Gulf crisis, others are expecting another normalization deal, and this time with Saudi Arabia. So what is on the agenda for the president's son-in-law?
Winds of change are blowing in West Asia. A 3-year-old rift might be finally coming to an end.
We are hopeful that things will move in the right direction. Right now, we cannot predict whether it's going to be imminent and is going to resolve the whole issue in one day.
Reports state that Qatar and Saudi Arabia are close to striking an initial agreement to end their dispute. This expected deal comes after senior advisor to the US President, Jared Kushner, arrived in the region. Earlier this week, Jared Kushner met with both the Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman in Riyadh and the Emir of Qatar, Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani in Doha. On the agenda, a bid to smooth things out between Qatar and Saudi Arabia. Both are key US allies, but the Saudi-led Gulf Cooperation Council severed ties with Qatar in 2017. After hackers published an article that accused Qatar of criticizing the mounting anti-Iran sentiment. While Qatar was quick to take down the fake article, the damage had been done, cutting off diplomatic and trade ties and imposing a land, sea and air embargo on the country. They accused the emirate of supporting terrorism. Doha repeatedly rejected the accusations as baseless. The Saudi-led group demanded 13 things from Qatar. This included cutting diplomatic ties with Iran, serving relations with the Muslim Brotherhood, and for Qatar to stop interfering in the internal affairs of states. Another key focus is the normalization of ties with Israel. Kushner and his team have managed to normalize Israel's relations with the UAE, Bahrain and Sudan. But Saudi Arabia remains the elusive prize. US officials feel that if Riyadh relents, the rest of the Arab world will follow. But that's easier said than done. Normalizing ties between Israel and Saudi Arabia could be a major diplomatic coup for Trump. That is, if he manages to pull it off in the weeks before he leaves office. The White House seems eager to get it done before Biden's inauguration on January 20th. The question is, will Saudi Arabia go along with the Trump administration? Or will it wait and take its chances with incoming US President Joe Biden? West Asia Bureau, WION World is One.
It has been 11 months since the coronavirus pandemic brought the world to a standstill. And as another second wave of infections surged the world, how is West Asia dealing with the virus? We take a look.
Hayat Hosseini was planning to have a baby with her husband next year. But the coronavirus pandemic quickly changed the course of their lives forever. Less than a year after getting married, Hosseini quickly lost her husband Sohail Gohari to COVID-19. The couple had been only married for 10 months. Her loss happened at a time when Iran is battling a third wave of infections. Iran remains the worst affected country in West Asia, with surging cases and deaths. Since February, the country has been battling the pandemic with little success. Iran also announced new restrictions to curb the spread. But it is not just Iran that is grappling under the pandemic. Israel too is looking at a third wave. Health officials believe that coronavirus infections are expected to climb further. The spike in cases come as the country is easing its COVID-19 restrictions. This comes as thousands of Israelis protest against Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in Jerusalem over the government's handling of the COVID-19 pandemic. But even as the pandemic rages across West Asia, Israel is not giving Gaza's Hamas leadership any so-called coronavirus discounts. The Gaza Strip, which borders Israel, is just days away from a healthcare disaster. Its healthcare has already been overwhelmed by the pandemic, and a sharp rise in infections could prove to be deadly for the region. Meanwhile, Turkey has imposed a nationwide weekday curfew as the country's daily COVID-19 death toll hit a record high. Citizens will not be allowed to leave home between 9 p.m. and 5 a.m. on weekdays, with a full lockdown on weekends. However, President Recep Tayyip Erdogan remains hopeful that the country will come out of the crisis by next spring. Turkey's restrictions come at a time when another West Asian nation is easing similar measures. Lebanon will gradually ease restrictions imposed 2 weeks ago. In a bid to relieve its struggling economy in time for the festive season, the nation will gradually open up, giving its citizens and businesses a respite ahead of Christmas. But the festive season may not be the same for West Asia. Once bustling with tourists, the streets of Jerusalem are eerily quiet. Despite the Christmas holidays being just around the corner, spirits are low amid a pandemic that has crippled the city's tourism season. A modern-day plague is keeping the visitors away from the old city, with its ancient alleyways becoming a ghost town as cases surge. Even in Bethlehem, there is little Christmas cheer. The already troubled Palestinian economy has been further burdened by the pandemic, and Bethlehem's economy relies heavily on the Christmas season. And travel restrictions now spell trouble for the biblical town. West Asia Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Mired in conflict since 2014, Yemen has been described as the worst humanitarian crisis in the world, and it looks like the children of the country are the worst affected. The country is facing unprecedented high level of malnutrition among children, as the pandemic and the shortfalls in aid funding worsen the crisis. We tell you more.
These 3-month-old Yemeni twins weigh only 2 kilograms. Suffering from malnutrition, they cry as their mother struggles to feed them.
Milk is expensive. I couldn't afford the cost of milk, so I took them to a medical center where they told me that they had to stay there to be treated. But I couldn't afford the cost. No one helped me in that medical center. I used to feed them with milk we used for tea, which caused their malnutrition. The price of milk is expensive. It costs 5,000 Yemeni rials, which is about $9. I don't have a job to buy milk for them.
The condition of the twins has become acute and will probably become another statistic without proper treatment. They are among the millions of starving children across Yemen, a country where a child dies every 10 minutes.
More than 45% of children under 5 years of age are malnourished. More than 2.5 million children are malnourished, including 500,000 suffering from acute malnutrition, which means if they don't get urgent care, they will die. A child like this dies every 10 minutes.
Across the war-torn country, child malnutrition is at a record high, and the numbers keep soaring every day. In Yemen's children's wards, the evidence of the crisis is clear. Skeletal youngsters crying weakly as their anxious families hover over them. In South Yemen, over 500,000 cases of acute malnutrition among children under 5 were recorded. While in the north, the results of a survey currently underway are expected to be equally concerning. A 15.5% increase in severe malnutrition has left at least 98,000 at high risk of dying. While parents say they are tired of burying their children, doctors are falling short of funds and resources to deal with this growing crisis.
The situation is really catastrophic in Taiz. What can I say except that it is very bad, because the cases we receive are so many, and unfortunately we cannot welcome them in this small service. We hope that there will be other organizations or another permanent source that will support us with a large building to provide equipment for intensive care, because we actually receive very difficult cases that require intensive care.
Many parents are even scared to bring their children to the hospitals, fearing that their youngsters may contract the coronavirus. Yemen has been gripped by war since 2014. The fight between Saudi-led coalition and the Houthi rebels has destroyed the country's healthcare system. The siege and bombardment of cities has wrecked hospitals, ambulances, and even medical stores. Meanwhile, shortfalls in aid funding worsen the humanitarian crisis. In September, the United Nations said that critical aid had been cut at 300 health centers. Over a third of United Nations major humanitarian programs have been reduced or shut down entirely. Only $1.4 billion of the $3.2 billion needed to fund Yemen aid projects was received by mid-October. While the twins have been saved by urgent treatment, that is not the story for most of the country's starving children. With a shortage of medicines and dwindling aid, Yemen now risks losing an entire generation of children. West Asia Bureau, WION World is One.
Syria's Noor Symbol is chasing her chocolate dreams. The 27-year-old's online shop selling chocolate is booming, even with the high prices and the scarcity of ingredients in the war-torn country. Let's take a look in our next report.
Having left her job a year ago, Noor Symbol has launched a new business, centered on one of her passions: chocolate. The 27-year-old Syrian created an online shop called Notchi and sells her extravagantly designed chocolate. According to Symbol, her product is entirely handcrafted and made with high-quality ingredients.
I tried. I failed the first time, I failed the second time, and the chocolate was not good, because it has international criteria such as temperature and other things. We should not change it.
The young chocolatier has acquired a following of more than 18,000 people, both on Facebook and Instagram. Social media is a crucial part of her marketing strategy, with Symbol's Instagram page showcasing her exquisite designs.
Online marketing is easier than shops because we are in the age of social media. You can reach a larger segment of customers than if you open a shop. For instance, there are groups on Facebook or Instagram. There are bloggers who buy my products and post pictures of them on their pages. So their followers contact me and tell me that we saw your products on this page and we would like to try your chocolate. Online marketing is easier and makes you more famous than a shop would.
Despite raw ingredients becoming more and more expensive, Sunbul remains dedicated to producing the best of her sweet bites. A small box containing 15 pieces costs around $13, a rather high price for most Syrians. But Sunbul says that she would rather increase the price than lose the taste.
I do not want to lose my customers just to get something cheaper. I prefer to stay at the same level and keep my customers who love, and they do not even want me to change the taste. I posted on Facebook and Instagram and asked them if they want me to increase the prices or use raw materials that are lower quality. All of them told me to increase the prices and keep the same taste.
With more and more people now buying her creations every day, all the Damascus chocolatier hopes for now is international recognition. West Asia Bureau, WION. World is One.
That's all we have for you on this episode of the West Asia Post. I will see you next week with a brand new lineup, bringing you more stories from the world's most volatile region. Until then, stay home and stay safe. I am Ghadi Francis, and you are watching WION. World is One.